Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if one of you in a relationship have the moon in Scorpio and the other person has the moon in Virgo. I have been doing sun sign compatibility videos for a while, and I think I know that I did like a couple maybe of moon sign videos where I was looking at compatibility strictly with the moon signs. So it's not like I haven't done it, but I want to do more of these because I think it's interesting when you're comparing your chart with another person's to look at things separately. When I'm doing love readings or what I call relationship readings, where I'm looking at different elements of the chart, I'm not doing the typical synastry type of composite chart or whatever people do. I actually look at individual charts. I call these relationship readings because sometimes there might not be love in these relationships, but the people are still together. Maybe they're hoping they can make it work. Maybe they have children and that is motivating them. But whatever's going on, I look at the individual charts because these are individual people. And it's not like a two-headed monster. That's not what a relationship is to me. So in looking at the moon signs, we can get a feel for how a person reacts to life. And that is super important. We're always looking at the sun sign, but I think sometimes we underplay the moon sign. And so with the moon in Scorpio, we're talking about somebody who has a very complex emotional life, and it might actually be quite hidden to others. If if the person has a sun sign in like an earth sign, like let's say Taurus or Capricorn, it might be like still waters run deep, where other people, unless, they have some flamboyant rising sign or something, or other elements of fire or water that kind of negate what I just said. But in general, I would say that a person like this really is not that comfortable sharing their feelings with other people, but they feel super, super deeply. And the problem, this is a challenging moon sign because Scorpio represents the shadow self. And it's not to say that a Scorpio individual, like let's say a Scorpio sun sign, can't operate at a high vibration. Not at all. There can be some very heroic and high vibe, high souls who happen to be born under the sun or moon of Scorpio. But especially with the moon sign, this is looking at to me, the more primitive part of ourselves in the sense that it's our reaction to things. So if you think of what a reaction is, it's not even, it's like breathing is almost like a reaction. It's we're not thinking about it. It just comes naturally. And that is how the emotions tend to work. Now you might say to yourself, oh, that's not true. I get angry, but I don't react. I'm like very, within myself. And that is somebody who your reaction happens to be restraint, but you still have that emotion identified as anger that that you're feeling. You just are not so overtaken by it that you are just like going off. And somebody else who is very unhealed and doesn't have a lot of sometimes emotional maturity, they may not have the same restraint. But the point is that when someone has the moon in Scorpio, they tend to have an extreme nature emotionally. So they either love someone or they hate them. And when I say hate, maybe it's not hate, maybe it's just like complete indifference. Because we know that Scorpio is associated with obsession. And so it can really be that extreme where either you are the center of their existence or you're not on their radar. Maybe it's not, that way with every person that they are dealing with, but definitely in, I would say, love relationships, if you have the moon in Scorpio and you're not sure if you should be with someone, chances are you don't really love them. You probably think they're a good person if they're not a jerk and you're not brainwashed by them. Then you probably do admire them and think that they are inherently good and all of that, but you're just not in love with them because there's a very strong feeling within Scorpio. And remember that Scorpio is a water sign, so it tends to be very intuitive and in touch with its, sense impressions about people, places, and things. And the other thing, too, is that Scorpio is a fixed water sign, so it does tend to have almost, you could say, prejudices where there's a lot of rigidity sometimes where a Scorpio person can just be fixated on certain attributes that a person has or doesn't have, and they can't let go of those feelings. And feelings and opinions can be almost synonymous, and it's not necessarily opinions coming from the mind. This is one of the things that we have to understand about opinions, is that a lot of times they're just emotionally based. They're not based on logic, and neither are emotions. They're based on how something makes us feel. And this is what prejudice is all about. And people think that prejudice is just about race. No, I mean, a person can be prejudiced against their own race, not just some other race or their own country, and just think that everything that is part of their country is inherently bad. And it's coming from some kind of opinion that was formed that was emotionally based. It could have been a long time ago. That is not necessarily true at all in a universal way, but may have been true for a specific incident. And so an example would be if a woman, had a bad relationship with her father and she grows up and she just overgeneralizes and all men are abusive and all that stuff. And then she treats them like that. That makes it even worse, is when not only does somebody think something, but then they start treating people, projecting onto people that animosity that they experienced from one individual, or maybe it was more than one person, but it wasn't the whole group of whatever it is that they're prejudiced against. So, Scorpio, the moon in Scorpio people tend to struggle with forgiveness issues because of this fixed water nature, and also because there is a tendency to I think there's like a tendency to want vengeance. Okay. And this is the lower nature. Okay. But I'm looking at the moon sometimes as the lower nature of Scorpio. Definitely other factors will modify this. When I talk about things, I usually talk about the worst case scenario because, your sun sign matters for sure. All these other personal planets matter. Your house placement matters. It's going to alter how this really expresses itself. But I really want to impress upon people that if you have the moon in Scorpio, see if I'm right. Tell me if I'm lying. If these are themes in your life, because you may find that it's very hard for you to let go of something. And I do feel that there are probably a fair number of Moon and Scorpio people who have experienced trauma in a way that it has affected them deeply. We all probably have experienced trauma. I bet you there's not one person on this earth that's never had anything significantly bad happen to them. Maybe, but the thing is how we react to it. And the Moon in Scorpio person, especially if they're not getting any support from people around them, it can really crystallize into a resentment, into a feeling of being cheated or somehow not given what, when I say cheated, I mean cheated of vindication or justice. If somebody abused you and you know that they got away with it and they're living the life of Riley and they're just like, you see them on Instagram and everything is hunky-dory and you just sort of like, where is karma? And the thing that, if you are struggling with this, and I just, give you something to think about, is that I believe there's cause and effect in the universe. I just believe that. But I also think that we don't know our history sometimes. We don't know why we had to experience something. And there might have been a reason that you're not aware of why you had to experience that. It's not about blaming victims. It's still, you would still be a victim even if you chose this before you incarnated. If you chose whatever happened, you would still be a victim. It wouldn't, erase that. But it feels unfair, but it might not be as unfair as you think it is. And that's one way to just like stop feeling so angry about things, because there can be so many complex and difficult emotions with the Moon in Scorpio that really have nowhere to go. Because when you think about it, again, when you're trying to process things that have happened, if there's not this feeling that, if somebody isn't coming to you and saying, I'm sorry that I did something, then it can feel like, sometimes you question, is there any justice in the world? Did I, am I making too much of this? And then you start to feel like you're wrong for having a strong reaction to something that somebody did that was clearly abuse. So these are very complicated things to sort out. And if you're somebody whose sun is in Gemini, like any of the air signs, you may have an especially difficult time in trying to, I was going to say bridge that gap, but it's not really about bridging that gap. It's about trying to balance both sides of your nature, because you can have a very airy-fairy side to yourself that is very detached and, nothing is phasing you. And then maybe it's like a mood that you get into where I was going to say suddenly get very dark, but I mean that it's kind of light and dark. And if that is the case and you feel like you can't understand why it's so pronounced, it's probably because you have healing to do. Because you know what? People who are detached and they're just kind of living on the surface of life, that's not necessarily preferable either. A person who has a Moon in Scorpio can have an incredible amount of gravitas. They can actually have a very healing ability and presence. I'm learning more and more that our very presence is part of our soul's mission. It's not just about doing things, but just about taking up space in certain areas. If you are like a light worker and things like that. And so, life isn't all unicorns farting rainbow glitter. So there are things that are dark in life. And the person who is a fearless warrior, light warrior, who is a Moon in Scorpio person, you're going to be able to navigate this in a way that other people can benefit from. The problem is if you're in a relationship with somebody who has the Moon in Virgo, and you are expecting that person to engage you at the level, the intense level that you are on, that can be problematic. These two elements of water and earth are actually, what do you call it? Compatible. But this is all on paper. In everyday life, things can get a little bit tricky because you may feel like this person doesn't really want to listen. When you do open up, you may feel like this person doesn't really want to listen to you. They just want to solve your problems. If you're a Moon in Virgo person, which I happen to be, and you're dealing with somebody who has the Moon in Scorpio, you may feel that their emotions are too heavy. And you may suggest things to them, like going to therapy or like getting over it. Try that one out on a Moon in Scorpio person and tell me how it goes. Good luck with that. I feel like, Moon and Virgo people are problem solvers. They're not really the kind of people to really, as the hippie New Agers say, hold space for others. It's really more about like being pragmatic, trying to see what can be done and doing it. And so if your moon is in Virgo, you may feel like this person is a little bit too into the drama of life. And it's important to look at sun signs and see what's going on there to see what the people's goals are. Because if the sun in Scorpio is a person who maybe they have the sun sign in water or fire, which tends to be emotional, they can be kind of into the drama. But I'll be honest with you. I know somebody who has a sun sign in an earth sign and moon in Scorpio and has been into drama. So it can happen to anyone. But it's very important that this combination learn to respect each other's emotional capacity. And actually, the person with the moon in Scorpio has the added responsibility of really working on their emotions, because they're going to be the one in the relationship that is going to tend to be sometimes even more emotionally demanding, if for no other reason than because they are going to be coming from a place of wanting to deal with that side of life that other people shy away from. So that's kind of like the taboos in life and all of that. That's where the moon and Scorpio person really, gravitates towards the conspiracy theories, the things, the lies that other people tell about their lives, all of the seedy underbelly of life. And this kind of emotional emphasis is not necessarily going to be something that the moon and Virgo person resonates with, because unless their sun is in Scorpio, which it could be, or even Mars in Scorpio, then they may have like a great resonance, because they may have a desire, like with Mars in Scorpio, the moon and moon and Virgo person may have a real desire to get to the bottom of things. And even if they don't come from that deeply emotional place, they still will resonate with this idea that we need to uncover the truth about something. I wouldn't say that the moon in Virgo is a shallow, emotional nature. It just is coming from the desire for something rational in whatever the emotions are. Remember that Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so the analytical influence is definitely felt here. And a person who wants to be more aware of what makes their Moon and Scorpio partner tick. Like they may actually be fascinated by the complexity of this person's emotional nature, especially if they have gone through some stuff in the past growing up. And they could be like a great asset to such a person because they can really remain detached. They won't get caught up in the emotions, and they can kind of like analyze it in a way to help the Moon and Scorpio person make sense of what they're feeling and kind of like connect it, make those connections. Because a lot of, when we talk about being triggered, we have to take it back to its source. We can't just run on emotion. See, there's my Moon and Virgo coming out. But I mean, I think it's true. And the Moon in Scorpio, a lot of times it's like the eighth house that Scorpio rules is all about the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind has some awareness of what is going on, but it doesn't necessarily know the origin of it. It just knows that it's there, kind of like lurking in the corner. Or in the basement is probably a better way of putting it. So I think that this combination can work if the Moon and Virgo person can be brave enough to deal with somebody who has such a, like, kind of a deep, I was going to say deep simmering type of a, but there was another word, maybe brooding type of emotional nature. And on the flip side, the Scorpio person, Moon and Scorpio person, needs to appreciate what that Virgo person is offering instead of looking at it as, oh, you don't love me, you're not going to the depths of emotion with me, so you're canceled or something like that. No, but seeing that this is how they react and that there is a good reason for it and that it actually has some validity, that it can help their life for sure. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. Like I said, I do love readings, relationship readings, or if you're single, just, looking at your patterns and the astrology of what's coming up in the love department, perhaps, for you. And if you're interested, you can check out my website, rainamoonastrology.com. The link is below. And I have other types of readings as well, like natal chart interpretations. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.